All right, we're going.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the third and final installment to the Money Makeover series. We're going to talk about building and preserving your wealth. Before we get started, I want to do a quick little review over in the form of pop quiz. Can anybody tell me, based on your visit so far, what were the other 4 topics that we covered up until this point?
Emergency fund.
Emergency fund was one of them.
Budget, cash flow,
Yep.
Proper
debt management,
Debt management, and proper
protection.
protection. Cool. Can anybody tell me what was the financial calculation that helps you determine how your money doubles over time? Rule 72. Good job. You got a pile already, so. But if you want another one.
I love it.
All right, we got some more. What else do I have? What are the 2 topics? Besides, you already seen it, so I'm going to say that. What are the 2 ways to increase your discretionary income? Only 2 ways you can increase the discretionary income.
passive income.
Decrease spending,
Decrease spending and
increase your income.
increase your income. Good job. I got some books up here. You got kids, so I'll give you this one here.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a 31-day
Thank you, sir.
book to teach your kids. You can get them started in, developing that love for money. Not love for money,
I was
but
gonna say, they still have the love.
not love for money, but the understanding of
When you finish it, just pass it on.
why money is important. I have another one, Jay. You can have it. Let's see. All right, so as we go on, I'll ask some more questions. We get an opportunity to get some more books out. Step 5 in the process is building wealth. Now, building wealth is a culmination of what we already covered from steps 1 and 4. Right? If you have a budget, you're sticking to a budget, now you understand what's your discretionary income. You're also taking care of your debt, you're managing that debt, you're getting rid of debt as quickly as possible. That increases your discretionary income as well. You're on the process of setting up an emergency fund. Now you get to a point where you properly protect yourself. Now you get to a point where you can build wealth and sustain that wealth. All right, what do I mean by that? Most people, they will actually dip into their long-term wealth at some point in time in their life because of lack of an emergency fund or things of that nature. When you do that, the consequences to doing that is there may be taxes and penalties associated with doing some things like that. And the most important thing you lose is
Time.
Right? If you have $100,000 saved up and you have an emergency, you have to take out $25,000 to take care of that emergency. How long did it take you to get to that point, and how long will it take you to get back to that point? Right? Depending on rate of returns and all that good stuff. So understanding that once you build it properly, you get to the point of building wealth, you can sustain that without dipping into it, because that's the name of the game. You want to be able to have several different buckets working for you at the same time. Having something working for you long term, mid term, short term, and such alike. Now, there's an actual formula to building wealth. It doesn't happen by chance. There's actually a formula as it relates to building wealth. All right. Well, the wealth formula is easy to understand. It's a straightforward way to understand the impact of inflation, taxes, and again, it's a straightforward way to understand the impact inflation and taxes can have on your savings as you prepare for your financial future. Here's the formula. Take money plus time, plus or minus rate of return, minus inflation and taxes. Can anybody tell me or remember what were the 4 enemies to your wealth?
Debt.
That was one of them.
Taxes.
Taxes.
Inflation.
Inflation. What's the last one?
Manageable versus unmanageable debt? Oh, we said that already.
Starts with a P.
Protection.
Nope.
Lack of protection.
Nope. So you have the 2 main ones there, taxes, inflation, debt, and the last one is procrastination. 4 enemies to your wealth, all right? But as it relates to the wealth formula, you take money plus time. Time here meaning the amount of time that you have to work, because you're not going to be able to physically work forever, right or wrong, right?
Right.
Correct, right? One day you're going to wake up, your mind's going to say, let's go to work. Your body's going to say, not today, right? So that's an actual time frame, a finite time frame, right? Plus or minus rate of return, all right? The reason why it says plus or minus there, depending on where you have your money today, you could be making money or you could be losing money just by where you have it placed. And because you guys took the time out to come, I'm going to show you the impact of taxes on the different types of investment or retirement plans that are out there and what kind of impact they have as it relates to taxes. And then you take out the two enemies to your wealth, inflation and taxes, that will equal wealth. Simple enough as far as the formula, right? All right. The formula illustrates how interest rates can go up or down. The value of money you save today may be worth less tomorrow. Taxes can reduce your overall savings. Even though the formula is simple, making it work for you can be complicated. Let's work together to help. Well, in order to make it work for you, having someone to help you do that ensures that you'll be on your way. Having a professional help you do that ensures that you will maintain that formula, because you have someone that will be looking as far as how taxes will impact what type of retirement accounts you have. Having retirement plans, having an interest or rate of returns to those retirement plans have to meet a certain interest rate. If it doesn't meet an interest rate, you could be losing purchasing power later, which is where inflation comes in. If you know that inflation is anywhere from 3 to 4% a year, then your investments have to do what? It has to be making a return more than 3 to 4%, right? Now we talked about some of the traditional ways people save with savings accounts and things of that nature, and you realize that if you don't understand interest rate, you could be losing purchasing power later on. Even though you may see your bank account and it may appears to be growing, if you fast forward 10, 15, 20 years from today, and you look at purchasing power, you can actually be losing money even though it appears to be growing, just by how much interest you are getting. All right. Now it also tells you here, if you're in your 20s, are you too young to start saving for retirement? Not at all. All right. In fact, that's the best time. Why? Because you have more time for your money to grow. All right, it gives an example here. Let's say you're 25, your retirement goal is to have $1 million by the time you get 65. If you start saving $655.30 per month, you'll reach that goal in 40 years. And that's giving you with an average of 5 or 6%, 5 to 6%. If you got a rate of return of 5 to 6%, you put away $655.30, starting at age 25, you're in $1 million by the time you get to 65. Okay? All right? But if you wait until 45, 20 years later, does that number not jump significantly? Right? So what it simply shows you is that the more time you have, the less that you have to start with, and the more it will grow over time. Because it's showing you here, example here, the hypothetical example at 5% compounded. All right? And again, if you only had 10 years to save, you see what the number is. Right? Almost $6,400 a month per year. Per month to get to that amount. And if you had 5 years, if you're age 60 and you're saying, I want to get started, you see the number there.
Medicare.
Right? Now, the sad part about it is that I see clients at different ages with that same issue, that concern. Maybe because society tells you other things are important other than saving for retirement. It tells you that, making that mortgage payment is more important, getting that car paid off is more important, even the kids are more important. But here's the challenge. If you have that mentality, I sit down with 60 and 70-year-old individuals that have that mentality, and they didn't pay themselves first, what we talked about in the other weeks. They didn't put anything away, they didn't start with anything, and now they're looking at their age, and they're looking at that time closing in on them. So what do you do at that point? Right? So just like we talked about before, how do you get to these numbers if you're at these ages? Well, you also have to, you start looking at minimizing the debt, increasing the income. However, if someone is 60 years old, what options do they have as far as additional income? Right? They may be on their way to finishing out their career, right? Things of that nature. All right? So it's super important for us to really understand what it takes to get to the point of actual retirement. Okay? So it shows you there in condensed form what it looks like. Any questions on that so far? Now, like I said before, once we get done here, I'll actually show you the impact of taxes based on the different types of retirement options that most people know of and will consider. But as it relates to building wealth, you have to start with the other 4 steps before you can even think about getting to the building wealth stage. Right? We gave that example earlier. Let's say you didn't have any protection. You didn't have a debt program to get yourself out of debt as quickly as possible. You didn't have an emergency fund set up. The only thing you had is, say, a 401k at the job and something happens. Where does that income come from if you're no longer working, if you're disabled temporarily, whatever the case may be? You're at a point where now you have to dip into that long-term savings. So now you have to consider the tax implication, the penalty, and the time that you're going to lose. All right? So understanding that you have to take care of those things before you consider long-term wealth building is super important. All right? And then the last step is once you've built or once you've established that retirement wealth or whatever amount that you see as wealth for yourself, you have to preserve it, right? Because it would behoove you to build this big empire and then something happens to you and your family gets 30% of it. Less than half of what you have built. All right? So how does one preserve an estate? Good. Will. Doesn't everyone have a will? All right, only 42% of adults currently have estate preservation documents such as a will or a living trust. These numbers are alarming because they mean that many families run the risk of having their estates settled in probate courts. That's not a good prospect, especially for families with children under 18. All right. Now, do you guys know the difference between what a will is and what a trust is?
No.
All right. So how do you get your living will squared away? Work with a qualified lawyer or estate planner to get that taken care of. All right. Ensure that your legacy reaches your intended heirs. Helps to manage estate taxes. Set up medical and financial power of attorney so that someone can take care of you should you become incapacitated. All right. So the difference between a will and a trust, really quickly. A will is a document that goes to probate court. So if you have items, if you have assets that you want to give to your family, it goes through that document that you put together is actually notarized, and that's the document that goes to the probate court system if something were to happen to you. The challenge with that is that when you go through the court system, other people get involved in the process. What do I mean by other people? Let's say, for instance, you had debt. All right? You have creditors that will be involved in that process because they will look at the debt that you have and they will sit right across from the family and then say, well, we have rights to some of those assets because the deceased owed us $10,000 from their student loans or $5,000 from their credit card, right? So let's say, for instance, you had, let's say you had, $1 million as far as your estate is, what your estate is worth. And you didn't pay off your mortgage, so the mortgage has to